Hey guys, welcome to this Level 4 Certificate in Strength and Conditioning. This course provides learners with the knowledge and understanding of how to improve athletic performance through a systematic approach that teaches how to develop athletic qualities such as speed, strength and power in athletes, as well as reduce sporting injuries. This course is divided into 3 main units, with each unit divided further into various learning outcomes, which collectively gives you all the tools you need to become a competent strength and conditioning coach who can practically help athletes to reach their full sporting potential. Key topics covered in this course: 1. Biomechanical factors affecting sports performance. 2. Physiological factors affecting sports performance. 3. Psychological factors affecting sports performance. 4. Skill acquisition and professional practice in sports performance. 5. Scientific principles underpinning sporting performance. 6. Principles behind programming strength and conditioning activities. 7. How to deliver a range of strength and conditioning activities. 8. Trends and tools in current strength and conditioning practice. In order to complete the course and become a qualified strength and conditioning coach, you will need to pass various types of written and observation-based assessments. The assessment plan for this course will require completion of written evidence-based questions, completion of a case study using a real-life athlete whereby you must undertake a needs analysis and develop a periodized program with justification regarding your athlete's performance aims and objectives. Submit video evidence of delivering 3 different practical strength and conditioning sessions to showcase your coaching abilities. One session will be a small group sprinting mechanics session. Another will be a speed, agility, plyometric session with an individual athlete. And the final session will be a strength-based session with the same athlete. This course has been developed by leading experts in the strength and conditioning industry, and you will be supported on your learning journey throughout with easy-to-follow course content and course videos. Plus, you have the freedom to complete the course at your own pace. Now, let's get started with Unit 1. In this video, we will take a look at the technical details to correctly perform the high bar barbell back squat. This exercise has excellent sports performance transfer and is frequently found in strength and conditioning programs as a method to increase lower body strength levels. Unracking the barbell. Place the barbell in a squat rack at approximately armpit height. Face the barbell and squat rack with the platform behind them to allow visibility of the location for bar replacement following set completion. Grip the bar with an overhand claw grip, thumb around the bar. Step under the bar so the bar rests in the high position on the upper trapezius and posterior deltoids. Bend the elbows to approximately 90 degrees and pull back to create a shelf for the bar to rest on. Keep back in neutral whilst inhaling and extending at the ankles, knees and hips to rise to a standing position with the bar on your back. Take 2 or 3 small steps backwards away from the rack. Starting position. Head up, shoulder blades pulled back, chest up and out, neutral spine posture, feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart, feet slightly externally rotated to a clock face position of approximately 5 minutes to 1. Weight evenly distributed. The descent. Inhale and then hold breath for the descent. Tighten the lower back and brace the abdominals. Flex at the ankles, knees and hips, descending until the thighs pass a position which is parallel to the ground. Keep the heels on the floor, whilst your weight is shifted towards the rear aspect of the foot. Maintain a neutral spinal position throughout the descent. Maintain appropriate upper body posture and elbows pulled back and chest up and out. The bottom of the squat. Keep head up chest out and elbows pulled back. Maintain a neutral spinal posture. Have your knees pointing along the line of the big toe. Have your weight evenly distributed through the rear aspect of the foot. The ascent. Powerfully extend at the ankles, knees and hips whilst leading the movement with the chest. Maintain knee alignment over the big toe during the upward drive. Maintain a neutral spinal position while keeping the head up throughout the ascent. Shift the weight from the rear to the forefoot during the ascent. Exhale as the erect stance is achieved. Re-racking the bar. Step back towards the rack until the bar is positioned above the supports. Flex at the ankles, knees and hips, maintaining a neutral posture to securely place the bar back in the rack. In this video, we will take a look at the technical details to correctly perform the barbell clean and jerk. This exercise has excellent sports performance transfer and is frequently found in strength and conditioning programs as a method to increase power. Start position. Grip the bar using a grip that is wide enough so elbows are positioned just outside the knees using an overhand hook grip, thumb around the bar. Have your feet beneath the bar with the bar directly above the midfoot. Keep the shins and ankles close to the bar. And have your hips higher than the knees. Maintain a neutral spinal posture. Keep the chest out with shoulder blades pushed back and down and positioned slightly in front of the bar. Keep the elbows locked outwards and your head up. Have the weight evenly distributed towards the forefoot. The first pull. Inhale and tighten all the muscles whilst in the start position. Extend the knees whilst maintaining a neutral spinal posture with the chest up. Keep the arms straight. Shift the weight towards the rear aspect of the foot and keep the bar close to the shins throughout the first pull. The transition. Extend at the hips to bring the torso into an upright position. Re-bend both knees, pushing them under and in front of the bar. Shift the weight forwards, ensuring weight is evenly distributed over the midfoot at the end of the transition. Finish in a jump position with the bar brushing against the mid-thighs. The second pull. Extend explosively at the ankles, knees and hips using a jump action whilst performing an intense shoulder shrug. Keep the bar close to the body, almost scraping the torso throughout the second pull. Complete the second pull with full extension of the hips, knees and ankles, triple extension, a shoulder shrug and straight arms. The catch. Begin to flex at the elbows at the highest point of the second pull, keeping the bar close to the torso, elbows pointed outwards and backwards slightly. Transfer body weight downwards whilst rotating the elbows and wrists around the bar. Land in a slightly wider front squat position to allow for greater depth of the catch, with the bar supported on the anterior deltoids and elbows pointing forwards. Evenly distribute weight towards the rear aspect of the feet. The recovery. Lead with the chest. Drive upwards by extending the ankles, knees and hips. Keep a neutral spinal position. Exhale as an erect stance is achieved. The jerk drive. Start the jerk drive from the catch position with the bar resting on the anterior deltoids and elbows pointing forwards, with ankle, knees and hips flexed in the quarter squat position. Explosively extend at the ankles, knees and hips using a jump action. Use the acceleration caused by the lower body extension to allow the elbows to start extending. Pass the bar close to the face. The jerk catch. Simultaneously split the legs when at full extension, explosively sliding them into a lunge position. Simultaneously with the lower body, continue to extend at the arms until the bar is overhead and the arms are straight. Finish the jerk catch with the front foot flat on the ground and the rear ball of the foot in contact with the ground. Finish the jerk catch in a lunge position. The jerk recovery. Drive off the front foot, bring it back to the midline. Bring the back foot to the center line, maintaining the shoulder width stance. Maintain full arm extension throughout the recovery. In this video, we will take a look at the technical details to correctly perform the barbell snatch. This exercise has excellent sports performance transfer and is frequently found in strength and conditioning programs as a method to increase power. Start position. Grip the bar outside the rings of the barbell and use an overhand hook grip. Have the feet beneath the bar with the bar directly above the midfoot. Have the shins and ankles close to the bar and the hips higher than the knees. Maintain a neutral spinal posture with the chest out. Keep the shoulder blades pulled back and down and positioned slightly in front of the bar. Keep the elbows locked outwards. Keep the head forward with weight evenly distributed towards the forefoot. The first pull. Inhale and tighten all the muscles while in the start position. Extend the knees whilst maintaining a neutral spinal posture with the chest up. Keep arms straight and shift your weight towards the rear aspect of the feet. Keep the bar close to the shins throughout the first pull. Maintain a constant torso angle throughout the first pull. The transition. Extend at the hips to bring the torso into an upright position. Rebend both knees, pushing them under and in front of the bar. Shift the weight forwards, ensuring weight is evenly distributed over the midfoot at the end of the transition. Finish in a jump position with the bar brushing against the upper thighs. The second pull. Extend explosively at the ankles, knees and hips using a jump action whilst performing an intense shoulder shrug. Keep the bar close to the body throughout the second pull. Complete the second pull with full extension of the hips, knees and ankles, a shoulder shrug and straight arms. The catch. Begin to flex at the elbows at the highest point of the second pull, keeping the bar close to the torso. Transfer your body weight downwards whilst the arms extend by pushing upwards towards the ceiling. Catch the bar in the bottom position of an overhead squat with the arms extended. Evenly distribute weight towards the rear aspect of the feet. The recovery. Lead with the chest. Drive upwards by explosively extending at the ankles, knees and hips. Keep an upright torso with a neutral spinal posture. Exhale as an erect stance is achieved and maintain full arm extension throughout the recovery. Hey guys, in this video we're going to demonstrate for you exercises that are excellent for injury prevention. Modern core training is about using exercises that train the core to restrict movement and allow movement from the hips and thoracic spine. The three basic categories of core exercises are anti-extension, which is reducing movement in the sagittal plane, anti-lateral flexion, which is reducing movement in the frontal plane, and anti-rotation, which is reducing movement in the transverse plane. Now, let's look at some of the exercises in each category. Anti-extension, front plank hold. Start on elbows and forearms, with your hips lifted off the floor by your toes, with your feet together. Toes lightly flexed and elbows driving towards your toes. Hold this position for a maximum of 60 seconds, with progressions given if this is achieved. A perfect plank should look like a person who is standing. Maintain strong intra-abdominal pressure throughout and aim to exhale slowly whilst holding. Common faults. Hips lifted too high or sagging towards the floor. With this movement you should feel the abdominals not engaged. Regressions. To make this exercise easier, move your feet wider to increase the base of support, or move down to your knees. With the closer the knees to your elbows, the easier the exercise. Progressions. Increase the angle by putting feet on a bench or increase instability by putting elbows on a Swiss ball. Anti-extension, barbell rollouts. Start on your knees with your hands on the barbell, which is located on the floor. Roll the barbell forwards in a slow and measured way, only going as far as you can control. Maintain intra-abdominal pressure throughout and slow exhales. When returning to the start position, make sure the hips and the barbell move together. Common faults. Hips pushing back when returning from the end of this exercise, allowing latissimus dorsi to take over and pull yourself back to the start. Regressions. To make this exercise easier, reduce the angle of the exercise and reduce isometric holding times. Progressions. Increase angle used in the exercise, getting closer to the floor. Hold at the end position for a time duration for an additional challenge. Anti-lateral flexion, side plank hold. Start on your side with one elbow below your shoulder and your legs straight, stacked on top of one another. From this position, lift your hip off the floor until your heel, hip and shoulder are in a straight line. Hold this position for a maximum of 60 seconds with progressions given if this is achieved. Maintain strong intra-abdominal pressure throughout and aim to exhale slowly whilst holding. Common fault. Allowing the hips to drop too much, which reduces the effectiveness of the exercise. Regressions. To make this exercise easier, move your feet wider to increase the base of support or move down to your knees. With the closer the knees to your elbows, the easier the exercise. Progressions. Increase the angle by putting feet on a bench or increase instability by putting your elbow on a Swiss ball instead of the floor. Anti-lateral flexion, overhead Pallof press. This exercise can be done using a cable machine or resistance band tied to a fixed point. Start by standing side on and holding a resistance band out in front with straight arms, with the height of the attachment or band being in line with your shoulders. Hold this position for a maximum of 60 seconds with progressions given if this is achieved. An alternative to holding is to do a controlled overhead pressing motion which challenges the same core muscle groups but with a more dynamic movement. Maintain strong intra-abdominal pressure throughout and aim to exhale slowly whilst holding. Common faults. Arms too bent, not having arms directly overhead and tilting to one side. Regressions. Stand closer to the cable machine or the band attachment point, stand with a wider base and keep arms bent. Progressions. Try kneeling or half kneeling variations, narrow the base, move further away. Anti-rotation, Pallof press. This exercise can be done using a cable machine or resistance band tied to a fixed point. Start by standing side on and holding a cable machine attachment or resistance band out in front with straight arms, with the height of the attachment or band being at chest height. Hold this position for a maximum of 60 seconds with progressions given if this is achieved. An alternative to holding is to do a controlled forward pressing motion which challenges the same core muscle groups but with a more dynamic movement. Maintain strong intra-abdominal pressure throughout and aim to exhale slowly whilst holding. Common faults: arms too bent and tilting to one side. Regressions: stand closer to the cable machine or the band attachment point, stand with a wider base and keep arms bent. Progressions: try kneeling or half kneeling variations, narrow the base or move further away. Anti-rotation, bird dog. Start by being in an all fours quadruped position with your back parallel to the floor and the hands directly underneath the shoulders and knees, directly below the hips, creating two 90-degree angles. Extend one arm out fully and extend the same time with the opposite leg. Hold this position for a maximum of 60 seconds with progressions given if this is achieved. An alternative to holding for the full duration is to do controlled repetitions with shorter loads, returning to the start position each time. Maintain strong intra-abdominal pressure throughout and aim to exhale slowly whilst holding. Common faults: pelvis rotating outwards, lumbar hyperextension, base hand and/or base leg not being at 90 degrees to torso. Regressions: to make this exercise easier, move your based hand and base leg wider to increase the base of support. Progressions: increase difficulty by moving your based hand and base leg narrower to decrease the base of support. That is the complete set of exercises in our sample core exercise program. Experiment with using these exercises in your own training and try implementing them into sessions with clients when you feel you've comprehensively mastered the key teaching points. There are many great core exercises you can use with clients, but the exercises we have shown will provide you brilliant foundations in any core program. In this video, you can see demonstrations of how to perform the standing start and 3-point start, as well as technical information regarding how to accelerate and sprint correctly. Here is how to correctly perform a 3-point start. Here is how to correctly perform a standing start. When working with athletes, the choice of start position should be based on the sport your athletes are competing in and which type of start position is more specific to the sport in question. You should be aware there are technical coaching differences regarding optimal sprinting mechanics between the start positions, and the athlete should be far more upright earlier into their sprint using a standing start versus a 3-point start. Here are examples of 30-meter sprints from a 3-point start and a standing start. Acceleration. Adopt a split stance with the weight transfer on the forefoot of the lead leg. Lean forwards until the weight is transferred onto the forefoot. Drive aggressively into the ground with triple extension of the lead leg. Aggressively drive the arm. Use a low heel recovery to apply as much horizontal force as possible. Over 0 to 10 meters, use an elliptical motion of the feet rather than a circular motion. At 10 to 30 meters, start to move to a more circular motion. Sprinting. Utilize a more upright body position with your foot contact in line with the center of mass. Aim for a more forefoot contact with the ground and a greater heel recovery. Keep the toes towards the shins. Common mistakes include looking up too early when accelerating too low, forcing the forward lean and being broken at the waist. sprinting on the toes, not utilising ankle dorsiflexion. When coaching your athlete to accelerate and sprint with efficient technique, you are looking to emphasise to them the importance of a long stride length, a short contact time, a large shin angle to the floor, fast stride frequency, and a high heel recovery. In this video, you can see demonstrations of a selection of effective sprinting drills that can be used in a sprinting mechanics session warm-up. So now we're going to start looking at some drills you can implement into your training process for acceleration and upright running. The very first drill we're going to use is wall drives. So wall drives are completed against the wall, forward lean, and an aggressive switch of the lead leg and the rear leg. The progression for this exercise is to increase the frequency and number of the steps. So you drive 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 5 steps. Now we have 3 drills for upright running that you can use within your training process. The first drill is wall pull. Now the wall pull is a foundational movement that you can then employ into your A skip and B skip as we progress the exercises further. So you want the exercise to be performed dynamically. You want to attack the ground as you will in your progressions for the A skip and the B skip. So as we move on, we'll move on to the A skip. Now A skip is a rhythmic exercise with a dynamic strike into the ground. So you start by bouncing, nice and loose, knee up, strike. Up, knee up, strike. Strike, strike, strike. The progression from this is the B skip, which will be a movement. You go into the same pattern as the A skip, then you strike out and then pull under the body, staying nice and tall and nice and upright. So bounce, strike, 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 strike. The A skip and B skip are primarily used to develop rhythm and coordination. The third reason for using it is to develop stiffness through the lower body and transfer the maximum amount of power into the ground. To develop a really powerful acceleration, we have to use the upper body as much as possible. So the bent over arm swing is an exercise which works the back and the trunk to help it stabilize the body during an aggressive arm swing. So it's important to remember to limit rotation of the trunk during this exercise to allow for efficient transfer of power. We now have 2 drills that aid upright posture during max velocity running. Number 1 is a standing switch. This helps develop a high hip and stability through the single limb. Second exercise is 1, 2, 3 and stick. Now this exercise is used to promote coordination and promotes a high hip when you're running at max velocity. Now we're going to look at 2 exercises that you can use to help strengthen the ankle complex and create stiffness through the Achilles tendon. The first exercise is ankling, which is working on dissociation of the ankle complex, being able to dorsiflex and plantar flex and create stiffness through the Achilles tendon. The progression of this exercise is to make it more ballistic and utilise the stretch shortening cycle to store and release energy. In this video, you can see demonstrations of a selection of effective dynamic stretches that can be used in a sprinting mechanics session warm-up. First exercise we're going to do is quadruped hip circles. Quadruped hip circles work internal and external rotation of the hip, and they also work the open chain musculature of the lateral hip complex. The next exercise we're going to use is hands up lunges. Hands up lunges work the anterior chain, so the hip flexor predominantly, and also warm up the quadriceps and the glutes and hamstrings. The next series of dynamic stretches we're going to use are high knees and heel kicks. So high knees and heel kicks are used predominantly to increase the length of the hamstring and also the length of the quadriceps. The next dynamic stretch we're going to go over are leg swings. So we're going to swing forwards, backwards and side to side. This works all four planes of motion: hamstrings, quadriceps, hip flexors and adductors and abductors. Now we're going to move on to the full body twist. The full body twist is used to increase the rotational capacity of the upper body during sprinting. A slightly more advanced version of this is to split the legs, arms out to the sides, and then rotate and reach, rotate and reach. In this video, you can see demonstrations of power developing exercises which can be used with a range of athletes. Each exercise can be used as alternatives to Olympic lifting exercises for athletes with injuries and unable to perform the Olympic lifting movements or struggling to pick up the more complex techniques of Olympic lifting. Each exercise utilizes hip extension to generate power. The kettlebell swing, squat barbell jump. The kettlebell swing is a great entry-level exercise for developing power. The exercise can be used if you lack the technical ability and or mobility to perform the Olympic lifts to a high standard. You can still get great gains in strength and power by utilizing a hip-based extension movement. So you start with the kettlebell between the legs, feet wider than shoulder width. Push the hips back, start the swinging motion until the kettlebell gets up to eye level, and then pull the hips through more aggressively. Now these can be performed for multiple reps, much higher than what you would use an Olympic lifting exercise for. So you can go as high as 10-15 repetitions with a kettlebell swing. One movement to look out for, and you need to be vigilant to look out for, is the loss of lumbar lordosis in the lower back. So you don't want lumbar flexion under load, just like any other exercise. You want to hold a nice lordotic position to transfer the power effectively through to the kettlebell. You do not want to see a flexed back and then an application of force. So a nice lordotic posture to allow efficient transfer of power through the hip. So now we have the barbell squat jump. The barbell squat jump is a great exercise for developing power in athletes. If you have athletes who can't perform the Olympic lifts to a high enough standard, the barbell squat jump is a great alternative. You can produce the equivalent amounts of power on the barbell squat jump as you can on any of the Olympic lifting variants. And the barbell squat jump is performed in a very similar way to the standard back squat. The bar will be in the same position on the upper traps. Stand up, walk out with the bar. Set your feet slightly wider than shoulder width. Descend to a quarter squat and then jump and land. Key things to remember here are the dynamic nature of the exercise. So you must descend with speed, descend fast, and put lots of intent into the jump. Lastly, think about your landing. You need to distribute the load evenly between the ankles, knees, and hips. Do not land with stiff legs. Do not land with a rounded back. In this video, you can see demonstrations of effective exercises for developing rotational power. Throwing and striking base movements are commonly used in modern strength and conditioning as a tool to develop rotational power, as many sports base movements are rotational in nature. Many sports involve kicking or throwing, but even running can be considered rotational, and almost every sport will require some rotational movements. Now, let's take a look at throwing and striking base movements you can use in a strength and conditioning program with an athlete. So now we have our rotational series. Standard wood chops, low to high wood chops, and high to low wood chops. All exercises are foundational for developing rotational strength and power in athletes. The wood chop can be performed on either a resistance band or a cable machine. So the exercise is performed with feet slightly wider than shoulder width, the band around chest height, arms straight, and then rotate through the torso and punch out to the side. Rotate through the torso, punch out to the side. And you can increase the cadence to increase the amount of power you produce through the torso. Variations of this are going from high to low and low to high, which biases either the upper body musculature, the deltoids predominantly, or the hip musculature. So going from low to high would bias deltoids and the rotational component. Going from high to low would bias more of the hip complex. The cable rotation, high to low, start feet wider than shoulder width, arms outstretched, and then rotate down to the floor using the hip muscles to help you rotate towards the floor. Low to high wood chops, similar stance, feet slightly wider than shoulder width, arms outstretched, and then rotate using more of the upper body, low to high, low to high. Another exercise you can use to develop rotational power is the banded straight punch. Now the banded straight punch involves more coordination through the lower body, through the upper body, and is very similar to the wood chop. Start side on, step, step, extend through the rear leg, and then rotate and punch dynamically. So step and punch, step and punch, step and punch. To increase the power, increase the speed of the movement. The final two exercises are throwing exercises. Now the throwing of implements allows you to produce the maximum amount of power, making them very, very ballistic. The first exercise is the single arm med ball shot throw, performed in a similar way to the punch, but with much more intent and power. So standing side on, one hand under the med ball, one hand behind. This is the hand that will do the work. Load up, step into and throw. So step into and throw. Step into and throw. The second exercise is the rugby ball pass, which is a big rotational movement and release of the implement. So standing side on, you're going to plant your feet in the floor, load up laterally, and then work and release into the wall. So from here, load up and release. Load up and release. In this video, you can see demonstrations of beginner Olympic lifting derivatives, which can be used with a range of athletes. When utilising Olympic lifting exercises with athletes, you should implement early technique work into warm-ups using broomsticks and training bars from an early stage. Then use basic derivatives and only progress as the athlete becomes more competent. Now, let's take a look at the beginner Olympic lifting derivatives, starting with the front squat. Now, the front squat is used to develop leg strength, but also develop strength in the specific position where you receive the barbell during the clean. So how we approach the front squat is barbell on the fingertips and resting across the shoulder girdle. Walk out with the bar, keep the elbows nice and high, feet slightly wider than shoulder width, brace, squat, and up. So brace before you move, hips back and down, knees out, hold the position, drive up with the chest, keep the elbows nice and high. The second derivative we have is the barbell overhead squat. Now, the barbell overhead squat, similar to the front squat, is used to develop strength in the bottom position of the snatch. You start by taking the barbell out of the rack, on the back, stand up, hands wider in the snatch grip position, press above the head, so a little drive from the lower body, press above the head till you're in your snatch position, lock out the arms, and then start your squat descent. So break at the hip, push the knees out, hold the bottom position, and drive up. Down, hold, and up. Replace the bar on the back, and then walk into the rack. So our next exercise is the mid-thigh pull. The mid-thigh pull is used to develop strength and coordination for the second pull of the power clean or full clean. So you approach the bar in the same way that you would the clean. Pull up, deadlift to the thigh. From here, push back with the hip, and then extend the hips aggressively, shrug, and jump onto the toe. So extend the hip, and aggressively jump, and shrug. Extend the hip, jump, and shrug. The follow-on from the mid-thigh pull is the mid-thigh high pull. So we deadlift to the thigh. From here, chest up, shoulders back, push the hips back, aggressively extend the hip, jump, shrug, and allow the barbell to come up along the line of the body, keeping it nice and close. So our next exercise is the halted deadlift. The halted deadlift is used to develop strength from the floor and just before the second pull. So we approach the bar in the same way, feet slightly wider than shoulder width, hands outside the knees. From here, we deadlift and finish just shy of lockout. So we deadlift controlled, just shy of lockout, and hold, and then back down to the floor. Shoulders back, deadlift, just shy of lockout, and back to the floor. In this video, you can see demonstrations of intermediate to advanced Olympic lifting derivatives, which can be used with athletes that have proven mastery with the beginner Olympic lifting derivatives. Ideally, an intermediate athlete should be able to perform derivatives with good load and full lifts with light loads. An advanced athlete should then be able to perform full lifts with good loads and good technique. So moving on to our intermediate derivatives for the clean and snatch. First off, we have the drop clean into the hang clean. Now both these positions are done with the barbell already lifted off the floor, and the aim is to work hard to drop under the bar and receive the bar in the full squat position. So our drop clean is to lift the bar to the hip, get high on the toes, perform a dynamic shrug, and then drop very, very quickly under the bar and receive the bar in a full squat position. So from here, on the toe, shoulders back, nice big chest, brace. So from here, on the toes, brace, big shrug and drop. Our hang clean is performed with a little bit more hip extension. So from the high position, shoulders back, big chest, extend the hip, get the barbell around knee height, and from here, extend the hip, jump, shrug aggressively, and then drop under the bar. So nice and tall. Our final movement is the power clean, which is our advanced exercise. It's an advanced exercise because of the amount of absolute power you have to produce to move the barbell higher than you would during a full clean. So we start in the same position as all of our clean movements. Feet shoulder width apart, hands outside the knees, barbell in line with the shin, shoulders back, chest up, from the floor, pull and catch in a quarter to half squat position. The aim is to move the barbell as high as possible and catch it in a quarter or half squat. So now we have our intermediate exercises for developing the snatch. Now we're going to start with the drop snatch, very similar to the drop clean. We start in the high hang position on the toes, use a very aggressive dynamic shrug, and then drop into the full squat position, receive the barbell and stand up. So this will help develop strength and also balance and coordination for the lift. So you lift the bar from the floor. I would recommend using an empty barbell to start. It's a very demanding exercise. On the toes, big chest, shoulders back, dynamic shrug and drop. Our progression of this exercise is to move to the hang snatch. Now the hang snatch involves hip flexion, dynamic hip extension, shrug, jump, and receive the barbell in the full squat position. So our final snatch derivative is the advanced exercise, which is the power snatch. Now the power snatch, similar to the power clean, is pulled from the floor and you receive the bar in a quarter or half squat position, no lower. So you have to develop more power, you have to produce more power to get the barbell higher, to receive it in a higher position. So you go through the same process as your full snatch, feet shoulder width apart, hands outside the rings, barbell in line with the midfoot. From there, chest up, head up, and pull the bar. So always try and land in the quarter or half squat position. Make sure the bar travels a good distance above your head. So moving on to our final intermediate exercise for the development of the Olympic lifts is the jerk. Now to develop the jerk, you need to either lift out of a power rack or use lifting blocks. You don't clean from the floor and then jerk. You jerk from a already raised position. So you need to get your arms under the bar in the position where you receive the barbell in the clean. Stand up, walk out. From here, make sure the elbows are pointing slightly down, slightly ahead. Break at the hip, drive up aggressively, snap the arms to lock out, and finish in your lunge position. It's important to remember, once you've received the bar and you bring your feet together, the back leg comes up first, and then the front leg moves back to join it. So break at the hip, drive up aggressively, rear leg, front leg, and from there, lower the barbell. Once you're finished, walk into the rack and put the bar safely back in place. Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Rob Palmer and I will be taking you through your advanced strength and conditioning course with Leap Academy. To give you a little background on myself, I'm a professional strength and conditioning coach, director of performance and international athlete. My history within coaching spans almost 2 decades working in professional rugby and powerlifting. I've held roles as head of strength and conditioning at London Irish and currently hold the position of director of performance within British powerlifting. My athletic background is in powerlifting and I've been privileged to represent Great Britain on a number of occasions and compete at the very highest levels within the sport. This service to lifting has seen me recently inducted into the British Powerlifting Hall of Fame, for which I feel very humbled. My time at London Irish saw me take on roles from academy, rehabilitation, and then finally head of strength and conditioning. From this experience, I developed a large range of programming and coaching skills, mainly due to the differing populations I was exposed to. I now work on a consultancy basis with World Rugby, helping with the implementation of tournaments within the UK. My powerlifting journey ran in tandem to my strength and conditioning career and allowed me the ability to learn and apply newfound knowledge to the craft of lifting maximal weights. Being part of the British teams has always been a huge privilege, and I've been lucky enough to win international powerlifting titles and break numerous British records during my time in the sport. This has led to taking on the role of Director of Performance and helping shape the future of the sport within the UK and creating current and future international champions. I'm very honoured to be guiding you through your course and sincerely hope it takes you to new heights in your fitness career.